Susan, you're pretty connected, certainly, and you've really been our chief technology officer at SLMA. What do you think of Jim's concept of the advocacy in politics, as well as using this for B2B to generate leads and generate interest?
Well, I think it's a great way to use it, but I think it increases your reach is what it's doing.
Tremendously.
It's getting you in front of audiences that you never had a chance to get to before, and it's much more accessible then.
Yeah, it's really the way they search the web for people who have an inclination. They're looking for political issues, abortion rights, regardless of what the subject might be, and then they're going out to those people and then ginning up their support and then prompting them to go out and vote, because in voter circles they know that it's the absentee ballots very often are the ones that carry a lot of these elections.
Right.
But Jim and I were talking about its use in B2B, which we have found at other companies, being able to do the same thing, being able to go out and find a group of doctors that are interested in ultrasound intermediate thickness measurements, and then being able to communicate with those doctors and talk about the software being used, being able to go out and talk to IT directors who are interested in software as a service conversion of their software, SaaS conversion, and they're communicating through Facebook, and they're communicating through the internet and through LinkedIn and other Twitter and other things, and then being able to communicate with those people. In other words, generate leads before they're actual leads. It was a big part of the Sales 2.0 conference last week. Several people spoke about it.
Well, so much of it comes down to, it isn't just, oh, let's go to Facebook and do it, and let's just go to Twitter. You also have to rise up when people ask the question of whatever search engine of choice they're using. You know, the more that they are able to reach out with public types of posts and things, the more they will rise to the top, and it will drive more and more people back to their site. I mean, that's part of it too. It's that constant bombardment of new material, new reach with those words, because not everybody goes to Facebook looking for that information. You know, that isn't where they always go.
Right.
It's where they go to ask somebody's opinion or post something or rant, but it's not necessarily where they go to do the research and find out, you know, what's behind each of the issues. I had a breakfast the other day with one of our local politicians, and what everybody at this little breakfast was happy about is that he posts his views on all the candidates. So when you have somebody that's credible that you already trust, it's kind of like the Facebook thing, but you don't go there looking for your politicians. You go to their sites looking, and you see who they're endorsing and where that's going, where they stand on the issues. So to be able to post those types of endorsements as well on these sites helps. It's just that cross-credibility and cross-promotion.
Well, I think there's going to be dozens and dozens of companies doing this, and everybody's trying to do it with a slightly different shade. Jim is looking at the political landscape, and there are other people looking at it from B2B, but Jim can do it the exact same way.
Right.
And it's for people that are really trying to find that advocacy group, the group that is showing some response to a particular subject and keyword without necessarily inquiring. And then he sends out nurturing messages to people. It's quite interesting. I think we're going to have some interesting interviews the next few weeks on people doing something similar. Certainly, Jim, I think, is at the forefront of doing this. So it was Jim Anderson today at Whole Crowd. Now, Susan, we've got a program coming on at 10:30, and
Yep.
we're gonna nail down internet radio and why it is such a hot topic today. Thank you very much, Susan, for coming in. Paul, a little word from our commercial sponsors, please.
With complex sales channels, have sophisticated lead management needs. They require management systems and services, and integration with additional systems. That's why, since 1981, these companies have relied on Smart Lead by AdTrack, the only full-service lead management company with customized systems for lead management, Salesforce automation, and analytics. These systems are managed by each client's dedicated account manager and are integrated with Smart Lead's in-house marketing services that include a contact center, email marketing services, print services, direct mail and fulfillment, and an ISO certified warehouse. Smart Lead by AdTrack. 3 decades of pioneering lead management best practices and systems for complex lead management needs. For more information, visit our website at smartlead.com.
Susan, I'll do the title of our show.
How would you like to find more customers, like the great customers you already have? With LeadSpace, you'll be able to find, reach, and connect with people more likely to buy from you more quickly. Learn what companies like Eloqua, Marketo, IBM, and Autodesk have already discovered about accelerating their revenue with predictive profiling. LeadSpace is your lead place. Find out more at leadspace.com.
This is Jim Obermeyer coming to you representing the 8,000 members of the Sales Lead Management Association. Today we have a special guest, Susan Finch, our technical guru, director, miracle worker, webmaster, webmistress of the night, etc. And she and I are going to discuss today how SLMA Live Internet Radio delivers thousands of hours of listeners, thought leadership, and creates usable content. We're also doing this in our studio in Santa Ana, California, and we're doing it on a private Google Hangout. And this will be edited and put up on YouTube, Susan, correct?
Oh, yes. Yep. So we're just doing a private YouTube video event.
So we've really been working at this. We've had an internet radio program for 3.5 years. We estimate we've had 40,000 to 50,000 hours of programming that have gone out on the internet, and we are picking up listeners now that we've gone to SLMA Live Network and bringing on new programs, MSP Radio, LeadSpace Radio, and several other programs. Today, we're picking up hundreds and hundreds of listeners and also providing a vehicle for people to listen later. Now, Susan and I are going to discuss this a little bit. I'd like to talk about the overall network and why internet radio is really so important, because what we're trying to do is really, we're going to target at-work listeners with 6 hours of B2B subjects on sales and marketing on Thursdays, and then move to Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That's the goal. But we're targeting these at-work listeners. Certainly we've got streaming media going out immediately. People are listening to this live. And then we have the recorded programs later. Susan, what's your thought about internet radio so far? I've got a lot of research here, but give me some of your thoughts.
Well, as you know, I feel slightly different than you do. I don't like the word just radio because I think that connotates listening only. And it's evolved so much further where you have the option. You can listen, and in the case of a video broadcast, like this is, and some others that we've done, you can listen and watch, or just have it playing in the background if you want. But it's nice to have those options. It's more engaging. But I think it's the way, that's where people are learning. That's where people are getting exposed to new ideas, to, a different thought process. And it's where I'm learning more of what I need to know every day. And I listen to our sponsors, our shows, and I'm just fascinated by the level of expertise that they're able to bring to me in such a more inviting setting than to just be bombarding me with the commercial, the website, the sterility of that, or buy my stuff. The engaging conversations, that's what's developing these relationships. That's what's giving people success, is hearing the human side of all these companies and hearing the passion from everybody.
Well, some of the statistics I'm finding, why internet radio. Internet radio has reached 39% of broadband households. 86% of a study's respondents listened to both online internet radio and broadcast radio streamed on the internet, and this was from a research study. I don't have it's Arbitron, and how it reaches. They make a statement that internet radio reaches 74% of Americans 12 and up. Some of this. You talk about internet radio increasing ad recall. I've got a bunch of stats here. You said something a minute ago that a lot of people, they don't like the sterility of just the web, a website. A lot of people said they're moving from AM, FM radio on the internet to internet radio. By internet radio is not just taking FM radio and blasting it through the speakers, but because they're tired of all the commercials. Now, we do run a few commercials, but they're very short and small compared to what gets sent out there on broadcast radio.
Well, it's interesting. Some of the channels that are out there, through Sirius and some of those, I mean, those are big hitters as far as, it's kind of that middle of the road between traditional radio and online shows like what we do, and then you have the Sirius and the FM and all those. And there is a cost factor, and they do still have to have their commercials. But you're right, the gigglers, the chatter, it gets old, and it's just becomes this white noise at you. I would much rather listen to an engaging conversation with intelligent people, and maybe that's just me, maybe that's just the folks we know, Jim. But if I want to hear gigglers and stuff, I can just turn the radio off and listen to my kids. I'd rather be in the car, isolated, and actually learning, being inspired, or getting exposed to new information. And I think that's where this comes so far ahead. And for us, I know our second piece that we love is the fact that we're on iTunes, so people can download our podcasts and play them, and that's handy as well.
Really interesting. Some of the research here: 1/3 of audio using workers who listen to internet radio, a full 2/3 say they play fewer commercials, and 46% say it plays a lot less commercials. And internet radio is becoming more accepted at work, especially, you mentioned this morning when we were talking earlier this morning, especially when it's business oriented. You're listening to a program on marketing and sales. You're listening to a MSP radio or lead space radio, or listening to we've had 295 people we've interviewed, 192 programs, episodes over 3.5 years. People go in and listen to that radio, and it's accepted in the workplace to listen to that. Same way it's accepted for webinars.
Well, I'm wondering from your stats too, the one thing I don't know, and maybe you can enlighten me, is when you say the percentage that are listening to internet radio though, but that's music too. What is the breakdown of actual, more of talk show, education shows, business shows? Do we have any stats on that?
No, not yet. Everything here, so much of it is music. People are breaking away from some of the AM, FM radio, and a lot of those music stations listening to business. But business to business broadcasting is so new, going into corporations at work. I think that's one of the things that it's very difficult to quantify who's really listening to those. Now, the live shows are one thing. That's wonderful. But for many of our users, it's the after the show and the use of these programs afterwards. So we've got these 192 programs in the can, and for a while there, we were getting maybe 160, 170 downloads a week or so after the show. And we admittedly didn't teach all of our guests how to use the content. We were just intent on broadcasting, and we said, oh, they'll figure it out. They're bright people. Well, as soon as we started telling people how to use the content, suddenly their downloads within a week or so going up to 500, going up to 700, going up to 1,000 downloads. Laura McGuire, a couple of weeks ago, you did the Google Hangout, right?
Right.
And it went up on YouTube, and then we had the radio program. Before it was ever broadcast live, she had 495 people that had already listened to the program. It was really interesting. So can you cover how do people use this after the broadcast? People ask me, well, who's going to listen to this? And I said, well, to Phil Fernandez at Markel. Phil, aside from your mother, I'm not really sure. That was back when we didn't have a network. We didn't have a channel for people to at work listen to it. But how do people listen to it afterwards? I know we've got a lot of listeners because I hear they come into me through iTunes, and I listen to it streaming through iTunes. What else do these people do to, like Lead Space and MSP Radio, to be heard?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Let's start with coming from straight audio, okay, because that's where we started. So we do an audio show. It's live. We don't have, at this point, a lot of interactivity. We're going to be adding that, though, in the next couple of months to engage more people live. After that, we have the recording. So, even back it up a bit before the show even starts, you build the hype. You let people know who's coming. You tell them, through all your social media, you create a post for it, getting people excited. And so then after the show, you can post the file because we give you the embed code. It makes it so easy. You just copy and paste it and stick it in a post, or you send the link out on social media, listen to the show, and you get your guests to also promote it. and you thank your guests. But through all, there are a lot of methods to promote a show after, but being able to push it out everywhere, and to also, once it's on the radio sites, it gets pushed to iTunes, because we have podcast channels for all of our shows. So then that podcast channel can be promoted on the main sites of these folks. We have embedded players so they can listen to it again, which gets listenership up if you're looking for content, or you have strategic partners that would love to support you and add to your content. There you go. And you can have people subscribe to those posts as well. So every time there's a new show, they'll either get it through their podcast updates, or they can get something via email. So then, there's more coming up. But what we've learned is it's that grabby headline. There are two big pieces that make for the success of the reach of a show. It's first the grabby headline, something that might stir a little bit of controversy, or two very diverse sides of a story or an issue. And the next, though, is the guest. And if you want to have a show or you want to be a guest, you got a job to do. You also need to help promote it. Because if you don't, who's going to know about the great show? The host will promote it, the guest needs to promote it, and that gets the buzz going, because your folks are probably pretty loyal to you. And they're going to be supportive of what you do, and they're going to push it out there. So, it's pretty much endless, because you can make graphics out of some of the great quotes from the shows, what I like to call nuggets. You can take those and make a graphic that gets posted. It can be a talking point. You can take snippets from the show and just use them all as individual talking points for future blog posts and white papers. You can incorporate the recording into another type of live event where you just touch on portions of it or play pieces of it, and then continue the conversation live with more people, and record that again and push that out again. So it's this constant message that you're building, and the conversation that you want to continue.
So if somebody wanted to start their internet radio program, they can do interviews with clients and testimonials and how-to subjects and case studies and discussions, etc. And that goes out live. Their guests can then post this radio program, the code, on their website, and then it gets posted on the website for the radio program, and on the website, the main website for the program owner.
And push to iTunes.
And push to iTunes automatically. They can then take this program and put it on their blog, right? And put the whole code on the blog. They can actually put out some of it through webinars, that old-fashioned way to get out to people, webinars. They can e-blast it out, right? Certainly the YouTube conversion. And a lot of our programs today are getting the transcripts. And these are 3,000 to 6,000 words in a transcript.
Especially for the fast talkers.
Geez, one of them was 6,000 words.
In 30 minutes.
And Paul just sent me a little note here that said 1 minute highlights, where you go ahead and do 1 little minute highlights about the upcoming show. And Steve Gershik did that beautifully a week or so ago in one of his interviews. He does great
highlights for Lead Space Radio. His teasers to get you hyped for the show are fantastic.
Yeah, he does a great job. So there's the teasers that you can pull out. There's what's coming up in the show. There's the transcripts. We turn the transcripts around in a week. I'm just surprised at the wealth of information in the transcript. There are testimonials. There's copy for white papers. There's copy for blogs. I just never imagined how deep those transcripts would be. Well, we're going to take a break here in just a moment, and Paul's going to hear from our commercial sponsors, Paul. And then when we come back, we can talk a little bit more about this reaching out, and especially after the program is live, how it gets put out, and maybe some of the costs for doing this, Susan, and how people can have a radio program of their own quickly, easily, and inexpensively. Because this huge content generating machine feeds that monster that requests content all the time. That's the customer. Paul?
Sales channels have sophisticated lead management needs. They require
I'm going to have
customized
you read this because it'll be an echo if I read it the way it was
and
set up.
integration with additional systems. That's why, since 1981, these companies have relied on Smart Lead by AdTrack, the only full-service lead management company with customized systems for lead management, Salesforce automation, and analytics. These systems are managed by each client's dedicated account manager and are integrated with Smart Lead's in-house marketing services that include a contact center, email marketing services, print services, direct mail and fulfillment, and an ISO certified warehouse. Smart Lead by AdTrack. 3 decades of pioneering lead management best practices and systems for complex lead management needs. For more information, visit our website at smartlead.com.
Have you ever considered hosting your own internet radio show to reach your audience of customers, clients, and overall community? That's what the new SLMA Live channel was specifically designed to do. Give businesses like yours a voice on the internet. Internet radio is conversational. It delivers stories and interviews, case studies, and customer training, product information, customer testimonials for pennies compared to traditional media. Internet radio is a content generation machine for content-hungry social media channels. With just one internet radio program, you can create enough content to fill up all your social media channels for a week or more with meaningful, compelling, captivating content for your blog, white papers, webinars, newsletters, sales presentations, and more. It can also be a platform to play your own native advertising. So take the time to learn more. Call Ron Goodman at 510-471-3874. That's 510-471-3874. Or email him at rgoodman@slmalive.com. And we're back with Susan Finch, our miraculous web director of all things web and electronic at the SLMA, and we're talking about internet radio programs and why they are such a great content creator and why internet radio programs are so important to reach B2B marketers at work. Now, Susan, can you fill in a little bit more how this is done after the program is live, and then can we talk a little bit about cost and what this and the effort needed? So it's 3 things, and plus the effort needed to start up a radio program. How much effort does it take? Let's start with that first, then we'll get into cost, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the reach.
I think the hardest thing is getting everybody to name their show and get their URL. If you guys can get that done quickly, we can get a show up and running in 2 days.
Well, LeadSpace, their name was perfect because LeadSpace company and the show title. Continuum wanted to show, but they didn't want to name it Continuum. They wanted to name it MSP Radio, which those are the people they serve. So that's a perfect example of them picking a show title. If you were a direct marketing company, you probably wouldn't call it Obermeyer Direct. You'd probably call it Direct Marketing Today. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
Right, but that seems to, I mean, when we were launching both of those shows, that was the biggest holdup, that and a logo. And so I actually took over for LeadSpace and got their whole show graphics program done, and we had their show up and running pretty soon. I mean, it went up, I think within a week and a half. They just had to get their guests lined up. But we were ready to go in less than a week.
Yeah. And it's important that the people that have these shows realize that many of them are live, but many of them are also pre-recorded. Sometimes the executives they want to talk to are traveling and running off someplace. I mean, we've had CEOs cancel an hour before a program. And this is typical, just like broadcast radio. You've got to roll with it. You can make mistakes, and things like this happen. So they can also get recorded shows up and running. What else did they have to do to get going? Get started in the radio program?
It helps if they have their own iTunes, account that we can help them set up their podcast channel, or we can do it for them as well. And it's just a matter of a bunch of graphics, getting ready of all the right sizes, having them approve it, getting some, initial content of what their show is about, kind of a mission statement. There really isn't that much more, but they have to be ready to promote it. So I think that's the key piece, is who's going to give this thing legs? Who's going to be taking the ball with this, or the responsibility to say, okay, I will push this out. So if you can decide that, that's great. If you have that kind of team available, you're set. If you don't, You can have, I can do that. It's something that
Yeah.
I do, that we do as well. So, um, we can handle whatever
Or they
pieces you can't do.
or they turn it over to their digital agency, whoever that might be, to go ahead and do the promotion for them. And most of the smaller companies may have a digital agency. So it's the pre-show promotion. We're getting better and better at that, pushing out all of our shows that are on SLMA, on the SLMA Live network. But yes, they do have a certain responsibility. I think some of them are taken aback by the sudden flood of content that they have. Before the show, they say, I want content, and I did, we're content starving, we don't have enough content. They have the first couple of shows, and they're like deer in the headlights. Oh my God, look at the content I've got. Where am I going to use it all? It's
Well, I
really
think
interesting.
but that's part of, our responsibility, as we've seen too. We've been doing this for a few years, and we've been piecing it together and adding more as we go. And so it's kind of ingrained in us of what the steps are before, how to be successful, what the steps are during and after. And if we don't spit that out of our heads and give them the nice list, without making it look daunting, because it can be overwhelming. There's so many wonderful possibilities for reusing your content. You can do parts of it, you can do all of it, whatever you are able to do, but it's there. It's just sitting there waiting for you to push back out there and use in so many beautiful ways.
Well, I'm reminded of a good friend that we had in the program a month or so ago, and he really pushed it, and he got just under 1,000 downloads. And then he ran a webinar a few weeks later, and he only got 10% of those on the same subject. Now, he can try to push that content to the webinar out, but it's more difficult to a great extent. They've got to get testimonials, and they can't split it apart as easily, and they can't strip it all out. It's interesting what radio can do, and the reality is it probably, I don't know what his cost was. He went out to hundreds of thousands of people for his several blasts to 100,000 people, and so he did his traditional promotion. Sometimes these webinars are running $5,000 or $10,000, $15,000, which gets us into the cost here. Paul's passing me notes, and yeah, he says, and it gets downloads every month forever. It isn't just once; it keeps getting downloads. We talked to somebody the other day, and he said, I ran a program 3 years ago, and they had 3 downloads this week.
That's exactly it. And, not to totally bash webinars, but people are sick of them. They're sick of having to go somewhere, sign up for a form, get sales calls after. And I know that's how everybody's so used to gathering leads that way. Take your great list that you already have, promote these shows, promote it new ways, be open to learning some new ways to promote them afterwards. They do have life, and that gets back to the commercial opportunity too. Okay, everybody might not want to have a show. A show isn't for everybody, but there's some great people making some wonderful shows that will get promoted and pushed everywhere. So worst case, hey, put a commercial in some of these shows. Again, it lives forever. And it gets downloaded, whether it's iTunes, whether it's the sites, whether they're reposting it, whether it's embedded, your commercial's still going to be in there. And what a great way to get your message out if you didn't quite feel like pulling it all together to do a show. So you have both options, or you can take both options. Have a show and do some great commercials to go in other shows and yours.
We take a look at AdTrack. They've been a commercial user of SLMA radio almost since the beginning. They have been heard on 40,000 downloads through the years. Lead space today up on SLMA radio. It's now going to be posted on our site, and it's also going to be posted on the guest site. And then that commercial is going to be heard by those people. The whole attitude on radio programs is so much different. It's more casual. People just doesn't have to be perfect. People don't expect you to be a great announcer. God knows, yours truly here. My wife gets a huge kick out of listening to the programs and the things I say. She just rolls her eyes. Regardless, these programs just keep reaching out, and now that they're syndicated, we didn't even hit that part. We've lost track of the number of people that have the SLMA radio hours syndicated on dozens and dozens of other websites. And people going to those sites now download and listen from those sites. So our downloads are going from under 1,000 a month to 4, 5, 6,000 a month, and we expect with a new network channel that we're going to be up to 15, 20, 30,000 a month, and eventually get much higher with every program that we add. So it's now. What about the cost? What do you think, Susan? Is this? Yeah. What about the cost? I mean, it's here. You're a person.
How many pieces do you want to turn over? How many do you want to hold tight and say, no, my internal crew will do it all? Or how much do you want to just say, well, you guys just set it all up. Here's the full package. Get it all done. Plug it all in, and let me just get my shows recorded or done live. So that's where it varies, and I don't mean to evade the question. It just there's a lot of pieces that can be added, as I'm finding, like with lead space and things. We're adding things to it, like creating a Google Plus event for every single show that they have. Why do we do that? Because it gets indexed, and it leads back to the radio site. It gets indexed. Create an event. Converting your audio with a couple logos and a headshot to a video and putting it on YouTube, and putting the little timestamps in there to mark the great pieces of the show, gets it indexed. Everything drives more traffic and builds your audience. So, how much do you want us to do? I can set up systems that would have it pushing out everywhere and custom, tagging it and putting hashtags in there and hitting LinkedIn and hitting Twitter and hitting Pinterest. How far do you want to go?
Now, our basic program, for someone just to have the basic program, is averaging $1,500 a month. For that,
right.
they get 4 programs for $375, $750 setup to set up the whole program, to get it set up and ready to go, and then from our SLMA live, they get invoiced $1,500 a month to run these programs, and then they've got the content to do with as they please. And that obviously, it can either cost internal money, it can cost people inside the agency they have, but they're trying to use that content anyway. Those people are doing that work anyway. They just don't have good content to work with on a regular basis.
Can we just recap that? You said $1,500 to start and to have a site built, probably all the graphics and all these systems, the initial systems set up. Guys, that is a huge deal. Where can you go to get a whole marketing engine set up for you for $1,500?
I think it's underpriced. It's really $750 to set it up and $1,500 a month. So I think it's underpriced.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to flip that.
Well, that's okay. We're going to increase our prices because you think this is really reasonable.
Yeah, I think it's. Jump on now because we're about to jack those prices up.
Well, it's been a great program today. We've talked to Susan Finch, the web director extraordinaire.
The dyslexic web director that just got your prices all mixed up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and we've been talking to Susan Finch, and from SusanFinch.com, and she's also our web director, worked with us for nearly 4 years now, doing a great job. And our subject today was internet radio and how any company can start and deliver thousands of hours of listeners and be thought leaders in their industry and create monster usable content. So it's great. Thank you very much. Susan, this is going to be placed up on YouTube, and okay, great. So people will be able to see that. It'll be indexed, just what you said.
And we'll be promoting it and time-stamping it.
Great. Thank you very much, Susan.
Thanks, Jim. I'm just going to stop the broadcast.